runoff going on right there, and there's some deadlines that are looming. Let's talk about this.
Yeah, Daytona, that's right. The runoff is January 5th, but between two Senate races in the state of Georgia. So we got Reverend Raphael Warnock against Senator Kelly Loeffler, the Republican, and we have Senator David Perdue, the Republican, against Jon Ossoff. So we were kind of wondering, who are the heavyweights, who are the surrogates that are going to be campaigning on their behalf in the meantime. And so we know just a couple of days ago, it's been announced, today, that the President Trump, will be in Georgia on Saturday on behalf of those Republican senatorial candidates, Perdue and Loeffler. This is going to be taking place Saturday in Valdosta, Georgia. You see the statement there on your screen. That's from the Trump campaign, who issued that release just this morning. So they'll all be appearing together. But as that reporter, that's a local reporter there in Georgia that was showing you that tweet, no mention of Brian Kemp at all in this release by the Trump campaign. Remember, Governor Brian Kemp has been in the crosshairs of the president ever since Georgia certified its election results. And remember, that state went for Joe Biden. The margin of victory for Biden was about 12,000 votes. So the president not happy. He even took to Twitter and said he regretted endorsing Brian Kemp in 2018 for governor of Georgia in that race he had against Stacey Abrams in 2018 in the midterms. So the president is not happy with Governor Brian Kemp. So it remains to be seen if Governor Kemp will show up to that event on Saturday. Very, very frosty relations and tensions right there in the state of Georgia with the president. And we also want to mention that Vice President Mike Pence will be in the state on Friday on behalf of those candidates. Daytona?
Yeah, so this is a busy time, obviously, for that specifically, the Senate runoff, but I do want to mention just a couple deadlines that are going on for the actual Georgia election recount that is ongoing. Georgia counties are actually facing a deadline of tonight at midnight to complete their recounts and submit their results to the state. This would eventually bring an official election end for 2020, with obviously some ongoing matters in court as well. So we'll be keeping our eye on that. We heard from Gabriel Sterling today a little bit about kind of some difficulties that several counties are encountering. So they're working as quickly as they can, Andrew.
Yeah, in Daytona, remember, kind of breaking down the political implications there. Some representatives from the Trump legal team held an event today in Georgia. And a lot of their statements at this event, they were essentially saying, speaking to Republicans in the crowd there, don't cast your ballot until we can verify the results from 2020. So that's an interesting predicament, Daytona, and it could come back to bite Republicans if these representatives from the Trump campaign are encouraging those Republicans in the state to remain cautious and essentially, not go out to vote in these Senate runoffs. That could come back and bite Republicans because they're essentially, depressing and downplaying the turnout by saying this today at that event in Georgia. So, if that's what the message is, and they're telling Republicans in the state who voted for the president in the general, who need to get out and vote for those Senate Republican candidates in the runoff on January 5th, if representatives from the Republican Party in Georgia and the Trump campaign are saying, hey, let's just wait and let's verify the results from 2020 first before you can trust voting in another election, that's quite problematic for Republicans in the state and in the Senate in D.C. Republicans are looking to maintain that majority in the Senate. So that's an interesting thing that I'm looking at right now as well.
Well, yeah, Andrew, and of course, making these statements coming after a press conference with Gabriel Sterling, who you're seeing on your screen right now, coming out and saying, we can't take much more of this. They're getting death threats, the Secretary of State is, other election workers, amid a lot of these continued efforts to kind of cast off Georgia and their election in general. So obviously a story we continue to follow here, and more to come as these deadlines loom. So let's move on to Arizona, because big news coming out of Arizona tonight, and we've got more coming on later, which Andrew will tell you about. But we'll start first with Doug Ducey, Governor Doug Ducey. He is known for being one of the more conservative governors in the country, very tight with President Trump and his team. He came out today talking about COVID-19. Our numbers are rising out here, but there's a couple other things he addressed too. I'll let Andrew cover that for you.
Yeah, that's right. And, you know, in the state of Arizona, we heard from Governor Doug Ducey, like you said, Daytona, at that press conference from Phoenix today at the Arizona Department of Health Services. So what a lot of people were watching for was if a reporter in the room was going to ask about something that took place on Monday. And you remember Monday in Arizona, the governor and the Secretary of State certified the election there for Joe Biden. Joe Biden won the state. He was the first Democrat to pick up the state since Bill Clinton in 1992. And we just kind of want to point out that a reporter in the room asked the governor, Doug Ducey, about that incident. And what that incident was, remember, if you saw this, it was a viral clip. But essentially, as Governor Doug Ducey was signing the letters of certification, basically, certifying the state's votes for the 2020 election, his cell phone rang in his breast pocket of his blazer, and we heard what that ringtone was. It was "Hail to the Chief." And so a lot of local reporters on the ground here in Phoenix remembered from a July news conference that Governor Doug Ducey held, where he admitted, and he said he changed his ringtone to "Hail to the Chief" for whenever Vice President Pence calls and President Trump calls, essentially when the White House rings him up. And so he was asked about this today at this press conference. He at least admitted that, yes, that was the White House calling. He wouldn't go in to details of what the nature of that call was. One of the reporters in the room asked him, hey, did President Trump ask you to not certify your state's election results? He said emphatically and unequivocally, no, that was not the case. He wouldn't. And then he later confirmed that after he hung up on that call, in the middle of that process, he did talk to the president after the fact. He wouldn't disclose what was said, just citing the nature of those confidential conversations that he and the president have together. But this was something that we were wondering, was that really the president and the White House calling? And Doug Ducey today saying, yes, confirming it was. Remember, he's a big ally of the president and vice versa in this Republican stronghold of Arizona.
Yeah, sure. So, just to kind of tease what we do here on NewsNOW from Fox, because we're primarily digital, we have our Twitter page, and so we tweeted out at NewsNOW Fox. It's also on our YouTube page if you want to go back and rewatch it. Moving forward with Arizona, though, Andrew, you have an interview coming up. Arizona was one of those states who legalized marijuana, along with New Jersey as well. What are you going to be talking about with that reporter out here in Phoenix, Arizona?
Well, that's right, Daytona. And, this issue was put to the voters in 2020. It was on the ballot. Should Arizonans be legally allowed to possess and consume marijuana and in any form, really? And remember, a lot of these states, especially out in the West, or in the Western United States, have adopted this and have decriminalized marijuana and legalized marijuana. So we're going to be talking to a reporter from Fox 10 in Phoenix about that and kind of what's next. Once this happens in a lot of these states, there's a whole host of other kind of secondary issues that need to be worked out, regulations, the amount that you can have on your person, that you can possess on your person, if you can use it in public, the tax revenue that is generated from sales, if people can start, having dispensaries and businesses of their own. So Daytona, just to let our viewers know, I was a reporter in Nevada for when Nevada legalized this after a 2016 vote to the people there in Nevada. And so there's a lot more that goes into it besides just, the citizens of the state saying, yes, we want to do this. There's a host of other issues that are involved with it. So that'll be an interesting conversation. But as you said, just to cap off our Arizona coverage here for today, kind of happening in the background of all of this today, with Governor Doug Ducey's press conference, talking about that call he had with the president. Vice President Mike Pence swore in now Senator Mark Kelly on the Senate floor in D.C. And I don't know if we have video of this, but the other Arizona Senator, Kyrsten Sinema, held the Bible for the oath. She was in her pink wig and her zebra coat. There, you see that right there. Those are two senators now from Arizona. Remember, Mark Kelly ran against Martha McSally just about a month ago and was declared the winner. Arizona has not had two Democratic senators since Harry Truman was president. Mark Kelly there earlier was being joined by his wife, the former Congresswoman Gabby Giffords, and many, obviously, Arizonans know of Gabby Giffords. Daytona?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting, Andrew, to see these sites right now, because I feel like it was just yesterday we saw Martha McSally saying her final address on the Senate floor. Now we got Mark Kelly, who is coming in. This is just history in the making, you know, transition moving forward into 2021. We'll see how the former astronaut does in the Senate.
Yeah, and just to cap off some of the Senate news here as well, I don't believe we have video of this, but another senator did give their farewell address today on the floor in the chamber, and that was Senator Lamar Alexander of Tennessee, who did not seek re-election. And I was reading earlier and watching his farewell speech, and even Senator Mitch McConnell, the majority leader, came up to the podium and said a few words and got a little choked up. They're very close friends, the senator from Tennessee and Kentucky. So, Daytona, back to you.
All right, Andrew, to kind of wrap a bow on our political coverage today, which I'm sure we got a lot to talk about with this, but President Trump is calling for last-minute repeal of 230 as part of his defense spending bill. So, you know, you're going to dive deeper into 230. You've got an interview coming up about what it is, but why now? Why this timing? It's interesting with the election kind of coming to an end and some of the trials he's had with Twitter. Let's dive a little deeper into what's going on here.
So Daytona, just to give our viewers kind of a rundown of what this is. So every year, Congress has to pass a spending bill, essentially, for the military, for the Department of Defense, and that's called the National Defense Authorization Act. It's been passed, you know, every year for the past 60 years, and it ensures funding for the Department of Defense. And so right now, what the president is objecting to is this amendment in the bill itself that would require, within a certain time frame, those specific military installations and bases that are currently named after Confederate generals, those generals who served for the Confederacy in the Civil War. We're talking, you know, Fort Bragg in North Carolina, Fort Bliss in El Paso, I believe. So there's bipartisan support on renaming those bases after other Americans, more worthy Americans of that title. The president disagrees with that, and now he is threatening to veto this bill, this spending bill, or excuse me, this funding bill, over that objection. We heard from the head of the Senate Armed Services Committee today, Senator Jim Inhofe of Oklahoma, and he says, you know, Section 230 is really important, but it shouldn't be lumped in with this funding bill. This funding bill is going to be put up for a vote soon. We are even hearing from some Republican members of the House. Adam Kinzinger of Illinois comes to mind, who said he plans to override that veto if the president's going to do that. But you know, a lot of presidents, outgoing presidents who are leaving the White House, they tend to throw in a lot of these wish list items that they want to kind of attach onto other things that don't really have anything to do with that. Because they are leaving office. This has been a priority for the president to repeal Section 230 of the Communications Decency Act of 1996. And what that is it essentially gives people on the internet, social media companies, liability for what, say, you or me, Daytona, post on the internet and post on these platforms like Twitter and Facebook. The president doesn't like that. He wants it repealed. And so he wants to attach a repeal of that to this funding bill for the military and the Department of Defense. And a lot of his supporters especially are very against this.
Andrew, he actually tweeted about it today, so I'm going to pull that up for everyone to read at home. It's Section 230, which is a liability shielding gift from the U.S. to big tech. The only companies in America that have it, corporate welfare, is a serious threat to our national security and election integrity. Our country can never be safe and secure if we allow it to stand. I don't know if we have the rest of that tweet, but there you have it right there. President Trump kind of connecting the dots with big tech following the election too. A lot of his tweets have been disputed by Twitter itself, so not sure if there's some personal ties to kind of adopting this in this funding bill, Andrew.
Yes, I'm not confident that will happen, but it would be something if enough people in the House and the Senate voted to override that veto, and then the president would kind of be out of options there. But remember, this funding bill is usually run-of-the-mill. It gets passed quite easily every year. But now it has two of these impediments, the renaming of the Confederate bases, which the president isn't for, and now he wants to attach the repeal of Section 230. And like I said, the chairman of the Armed Services Committee in the Senate, Senator Jim Inhofe, said, Section 230 is important. We should look at it as a standalone and kind of not tie it together with the National Defense Authorization Act. So we'll be following that story. And like you said, Daytona, we're going to have a tech expert. He's a law professor from Santa Clara University, and he's going to come on in about the next hour or so. We want to preview this, and he's going to break everything down. What is Section 230, what it does, what it doesn't do, and why do we have it? Also, we wanted to preview for you here on News Now from Fox that a lot of talk about pardons this last week. Remember, Donald Trump pardoned his former National Security Advisor, Michael Flynn. There's a lot of reporting out there that Rudy Giuliani has possibly asked for a preemptive pardons for the president himself, his children, his son-in-law, and his advisors. So we're going to also talk to a professor from Princeton University on all things politics on if the president can actually pardon himself preemptively. You saw that report there before we talked, me and Daytona, in this segment here. So we're going to dive a little deeper into that in the next few minutes or so. Daytona?
Okay, Andrew, just to wrap a bow on this whole segment, I want to head back into COVID-19 because that's a lot of what we covered here on News Now from Fox, but more so about spending and this economic stimulus bill that we're all waiting for. Not sure if we're going to see it before the end of the year, but we're hearing from a lot of officials that we need it on both sides of the aisle saying this. Even Biden today, President-elect Biden, had a virtual roundtable with American workers across the country. And these workers, I was listening to this as we were playing it this morning, were saying, we can't last much longer. We're seeing these protests in New York as well, as a bar owner actually got arrested because he stayed open later and kind of went against the mandate. But it's a tough position that a lot of these businesses are having to face, and we heard that today as people plead really to Joe Biden.
Yeah, that's right. In Daytona now, there's kind of three camps forming amongst the Senate and the House. Remember, the Democrats in the House passed the HEROES Act this spring. The Senate has not taken that up. That was going to be about $1.3 trillion in relief. And then just yesterday, we saw that bipartisan group come out in front of the podium and say, here, we have a $900 billion proposal of relief. Then you have Republicans, especially Mitch McConnell, the majority leader in the Senate. He wants to get that number, we're hearing, down to $500 billion. So it's kind of all over the place right now. I'm not very confident watching this that this can be done before the end of the year. And remember, Daytona, government funding runs out on December 11th. So they're going to have to pass a funding bill for the government before that date. And that's separate. And that's a loan, a standalone from the coronavirus relief at all. And remember, like you said, it'll be interesting to see if they do any relief for targeted to specific industries like the airlines, like restaurants, like schools, like state and local governments. So it still remains to be seen. Daytona?
Yep. So, I mean, that's pretty much all we heard from Joe Biden and his team today. We're going to play that out for you actually right now so you can hear it for yourself. Andrew has a bunch of great interviews coming up in the next hour or so. We're on News Now from Fox, and we're bringing you live, raw, unfiltered content. This is stuff that you can't really be seeing on a lot of other networks right now. We're playing it out in its entirety so you can make up your mind for yourself. But we hope we brought you the best headlines of the day here on this political rundown, right, Andrew?
That's right. Stick here with News Now from Fox for everything live, raw, and unfiltered. Like you said, Daytona.
All right, we're going to send everyone off to a 2-minute commercial break. When you come back, you'll be hearing from President-elect Joe Biden.